What's going on, Security Ninjas? Samuel here, and I like to hack things. So you've probably heard of DevOps, but have you heard of DevSecOps? Yes, it exists, and it's different. I have an amazing guest today, one of my subscribers who has been following for years and posted his inspirational story in the comments section, and I've kind of been watching his journey over the last few years as he's updated his post. And so I figured, why not have him on the channel to tell his inspirational story so you can learn from him firsthand how he's made his path through security and how he now works in DevSecOps. So let's jump into the interview with Dillon Watts. All right, everyone, welcome to the interview. What is DevSecOps? I have Dillon Watts here. As I mentioned before, he has an amazing story that he's going to walk us through on his path into tech and security. And I was just got done telling him, but it's so motivational seeing his comments in the comment section, seeing his journey from over a year and a half, 2 years ago to where he is now. So I'll stop talking and let him do his intro. So Dillon, why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got to where you're at?
Yeah, man. So thanks for having me.
Of course.
A lot of the issues that I've had in the past were not necessarily having a guide when I was younger. I never knew what I wanted to do. So I found myself wasting a lot of time in college. For a moment, I thought I was going to be a doctor, and then next week I'd be an accountant, that kind of thing. But always when I was in between classes with my girlfriend at the time, now my wife, I was setting up like Windows domains and setting up virtual machines and things like that. My wife was just like, why don't we just like hone in on what you like to do when you're not in school, you know? So after doing that, I was able to do a lot of interviews, and I ended up getting picked up at a very small MSP, a managed service provider. There were around 10 people at the time, around 30 customers. And I was able to get in and prove myself as a level 1 help desk. So like doing the password resets, things like that. And I was able to prove myself enough to the administrators there. There was 2 at the location. And whenever they would get overwhelmed, they would give me things to do. So like a little bit higher level, junior admin stuff, like, hey, can you help join this node to the domain? Things like that. From there, I was able to work my way up into an actual administrator. So we ended up having 3 administrators for our 30 customers. And I was able to really just like hone in on that foundational piece to the point where I actually got picked up by a government contractor as one of their internal Windows admins. A lot of that involved me writing Python scripts to automate a lot of the repetitive work, which really allowed me to like get into the world of development. I wouldn't really classify myself as a developer, but being able to have both the administration skills along with the development skills was really something that was unique, at least in my location, to where after about 2 years being at that government contractor, I got picked up at a startup, which they gave me a massive pay rate. So like a pay raise. So I had to go there. At the time though, at that government contractor, since it was government, you had to have some kind of certification. So I took the job knowing that I had 90 days to get my Security Plus. So I bought all the books that I could. I took all the Professor Messer classes, and I just studied for hours every night. And after about 45 days, I was able to pass it with flying colors. So I was really happy with that. And then as I went into the startup, that's when I started learning about infrastructure. So writing Terraform, Packer scripts, not necessarily doing security around those, but actually like building it out and then working with developers and how the infrastructure will combine with their applications and how we can speed up that process. So that was kind of like my first step into the DevOps world. And then I eventually was able to get into a role, an AppSec role, where I was really able to specialize in the HashiCorp suite of tools. So HashiCorp Vault, Terraform, Packer, Vagrant for doing local testing, things like that. And now I'm doing infrastructure at Unity, and it's literally like my 3rd day. So it's been a wild ride, lots of ups and downs, but I wouldn't have it any other way.
That is awesome, man. What a background. So I kind of came from a similar background where I was doing some computer science stuff in college, and I went to the help desk and did some sysadmin work and did a lot of scripting to like automate a lot of the job, a lot of the manual processes, and that kind of got me started on some development along with my security stuff. And it's interesting that we kind of share that background. But how awesome is that, man? I know it sounds like the traditional path. People always say go to help desk and go to sysadmin, and then find out kind of where you want to go from in IT and security. I do want to stress though that that isn't always the case. Like you can start wherever. I've seen people come from background of law school, they drop out and they're like, I want to try security. Hey, if you're passionate about it, go for it. And so Dillon, I think that's so awesome, the background you've had and where you've ended up. And I'm honestly curious to see like where you go over the next few years and kind of what you accomplish. So before we get too far into the interview, could you do the viewers a solid and describe in your terms what DevSecOps is?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's kind of funny because DevOps, nobody really knows what it is. Like the traditional, if you've read the Phoenix Project and the DevOps handbook, it pretty much just says that we are combining developers and operations, and we're getting rid of the wall that is, oh, we wrote the code, now we're going to throw it over to the ops guys. So traditionally, DevOps is around combining those. We are now, ops people are now writing infrastructure as code. They are doing unit testing on applications alongside their developers. And the main part, the main thing about DevOps is they want to increase the frequency that deployments happen, and they want to have faster feedback around their applications. So what does that mean for security? Traditionally, security is one of the main blockers, like especially when you're looking at compliance, GDPR, things like that. You want to have fast feedback loops with your security. So as a security professional, I want to be in everybody's repository. Every commit, every push to master, I want the developer to know exactly when they just introduce XSS into their code. I want them to be able to know exactly when they just put a bug in and what they need to do to go and fix it. So that creates a culture of proactiveness around fixing these potential issues. Now, you have your traditional pen testing red teams that do more reactive stuff. So like they're looking at applications that are more like legacy and things that are live in a production site. And they're going in and creating reports and letting people know, hey, we found these vulnerabilities, they need to get fixed. But what can we do before that? And that's where DevSecOps fits into the pipeline.
That's awesome. I do got a question for you. So how do you think, Copilot will affect your work? Do you think devs will be using that and may introduce insecure code into the pipeline? How do you see that handling that?
I haven't played with GitHub Copilot as of yet, but I feel like as security professionals and we have malware analysts writing code, hopefully we can actually start seeing secure code practices being implemented directly in. But as of right now, I'm not too sure.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting because I've seen some pretty funny videos on it where one guy got it to basically introduce a vulnerability into the software just by, typing in a few words. So that's pretty interesting. But anyways, yeah, so that's a great kind of a breakdown of DevOps and DevSecOps. So let's jump into the next question. This is kind of more of a career question, really. So what skills do you think are important for cybersecurity and the role that you have?
Yeah, so let's start with the role that I have, and then we'll go broader from there. So for me, at least, I think that you need to have from a DevSecOps perspective, you should have a really good foundational piece of knowing what does administration look like? What does like an SRE type of role look like? How should you deploy an application and ensure that it is reliable and available at all times, or at least as available as it should be based on like the RPOs that you're trying to reach within the application. Excuse me. As from there, you need to be able to have like your foundation on networking. If you need to do a little bit of application programming, you might not need to consider yourself an actual developer, but being able to bust out a script that can grab some data and put it into a CSV file, things like that. I wouldn't consider those to be like actual developer skills, but those are like essential skills to have in the industry. Um, but security is like a huge ocean. There's like a wide range of different types of careers. There, like you said, there's people that have dropped out of law school and became security people, but I've actually known people that specialized in cyber law and are working for companies that are actually looking at like, okay, so this is how GDPR is going to affect our posture overseas, and being able to communicate to the executives of that organization. You also have hardcore malware analysts and reverse engineers that are very technical, deep, and specialized in their thing. And then you got people that are just like security analysts that are doing security reviews, recommendations. And then you also have consulting. So let's say you're a consultant and you are like specialized into one really awesome piece of software. Let's use HashiCorp Vault, for example. You can be hired out by many customers that need that product, and it's your job to go out and help them develop the deployment, and then go from there. So security is a huge ocean of that. I don't even know what to say. It's awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty cool because we're kind of on different ends of the spectrum. Like I work in red teaming, so the skills required may be different, but the foundational skills, it sounds like, are the same. Like you need to understand networking, you need to understand systems, a little bit of infrastructure, and you need to have those communication skills, being able to communicate to the client or to the executives or to other leadership in your organization. It's interesting because like I've interviewed other people and it's basically the same, right? I mean,
Yeah.
the technical skills seem to change depending upon the position, from like threat hunting, red teaming to DevSecOps, but those soft skills, they seem to be the same. And I think that's where a lot of people that come from different backgrounds
Mhm.
really shine, right? Like you're talking about the individual who does cyber law, like they're fusing both those skill sets in order to make their career. And I think that's so cool.
And I think, to add to that, if you come to me and you say, "Hey, I just found reflected XSS on your application," right? I should be able to know exactly what you're talking about, and then we should be able to have an intelligent conversation on how should we remediate. How did you find this? Did you give me a POC? Can you actually prove that this is what it is? So again, like that's like the foundational layer that, regardless of where you are or what your actual specialty is, you need to have that foundational base layer to know and be able to talk intelligently across all forms of security.
So basically like a common language amongst professionals, right?
Yep,
Yeah.
exactly.
Okay, cool. Cool. Okay, so I think I already know the answer to this question, but since both of us have a similar background, do you think that there is one standard path to getting into security? And then I'll take it a step further. Do you think there's one standard path to getting into DevSecOps?
No, there's not. So as you guys just heard, I dropped out of college. That is not the traditional way of doing things. I know people that have gone all the way and got their PhDs, multiple PhDs, multiple master's degrees, and then got jobs. It's really, security doesn't have one single face. I believe that we need the security professionals. I was doing some research, and I think there was about 55,000 open security, cloud security engineering jobs just in the United States alone. And we need people from all backgrounds. So we need entry level people that are willing and hungry to learn, and we need those seasoned veterans that can help actually teach those entry level people. Now we do say that there is an issue though. So a lot of these HR types of applicants that are coming in, or like these actual applications, we need to somehow break the unbearing level of skills required to get those entry level jobs. I was listening to Alyssa Miller on one of her TED Talks, and she was mentioning that like to get an entry level job for $40,000, you need to have a master's degree and 10 years of experience. Like that's ridiculous, and that's something that we need to do better at. And I think it's just educating the HR folks of what it takes to actually do the job, on top of actually just setting realistic examples of what the job is to the HR folks. But yeah, security overall is for everybody, and it should be for everybody. Absolutely, inclusiveness for all.
Yeah, it's interesting. There's always talk about the barrier to entry for those first jobs. Because like if you're taking a non-standard path, right, you're not going the sysadmin route, the IT background, there is a barrier to make that jump into security because you're kind of people may think you're missing those foundational skills. But fortunately, we have CTS we can do certifications, just blog posts like home labs. There's plenty of things that individuals can do to kind of show that they actually put the time in to build those foundational skills. But I always look at, especially like entry-level job posts, I always look at that's like their wish list, right? A lot of times, if you can meet a few of those requirements, you might be able to snag an interview, and then that's your chance to show your skills, right? Really convey what you actually can do for the organization.
Yeah, I've also found too that let's say you have a GitHub profile and you have a blog full of stuff that you've done over the past few months, few years. Excuse me. If you can find a person that works at the company that you're trying to apply to, because you know you have those automatic filters that if you don't have the right keywords, they're not even going to send you to HR. If you can somehow go on LinkedIn and find a person that works in the HR department, send them a direct message, pay the $30 for LinkedIn premium just so you can get through and try to have that active conversation with somebody like, hey, I might not have all the skills that you're asking for, but I do have this, and here are the links to prove it. That might just spark interest, and that might actually get you through that barrier.
Yeah, I agree. Networking is such a big deal in this industry. I want to say it's sad because it is like that, but most industries honestly are like that. If you know someone who works at the company, like you're saying, even if it's not in HR, like a referral alone will at least get you a phone call from the hiring manager at least, or the first screener interview. So work on your networking along with your skills. So remember those soft skills are very important.
So I have a non-tech related way that works out. So my wife just got a job as a NICU nurse. And in San Antonio, that is a massive deal. You have thousands of applicants and they only take like 5, like per quarter. She knew 2 people from a while back that she worked with previously that were in the department, and they were able to send her straight up to the hiring manager, and she was able to go through the interview process. So just like it sucks that that's how the world works. But if you can at least have some way in, just like drop a little piece of knowledge on somebody, that's going to go a long way. And you might not get the job right now, but at least you planted that seed, and then maybe 6 months from now, a new job will come and they'll think about you, and then you can have that conversation again,
Oh, 100%. I've seen that firsthand. I've seen someone do exactly what you're talking about. Like, hey, I'm interested in this role, but they don't have anything open. And then it's almost like 8 months later, they get a call out of nowhere, like, hey, we're going to hire, I still have your name on my list, or I have your resume in my folder or whatever, I just wanted to give you a shot. And it's about building those connections. That's where those soft skills come into play. Cool. So this one is kind of an easy question as well, because we've kind of already talked about this. What are your thoughts on degree versus certs for the area of security that you work in?
Yeah, so a little bit going into it. So when I was working my level 1 help desk, I didn't have any kind of certifications. I had my associate's degree in general business, but that wasn't really getting me anywhere. I was making like $14 an hour as a level 1 help desk. But the moment I was, like I said in my comments with you, that watching your videos and a lot of the other folks on YouTube really helped me stay motivated in my studies to get the Security Plus. The moment I got that Security Plus, I would say my salary went up like 6 times. And then I eventually got the CYSA from CompTIA, and it doubled from that, so I don't necessarily think, especially if you're going to be doing a developer-centric role, that college is necessary. But you need to be able to prove that you know the knowledge. You're not just repeating things that you've heard, that you have a deep intrinsic knowledge of what you're talking about. And then just maybe getting through that door, the certificates might be able to help you. But I don't necessarily think that a college degree is required in today's time.
Yeah, I 100% agree. If you decide to go that route, that tells me you're motivated and you're passionate about what you want to learn, and you're probably going to put in that extra time anyways outside of your course studies, and you're probably going to be aiming for A plus or Sec plus, depending on the path you're wanting to take. And that's very important. So great insight on that, Dillon.
And to add on to that real quick
Go ahead.
before we move on, it's also, if you think about like, okay, let's say you're doing blue team and then you want to move into red team. That might be the time where you want to start looking at certifications again that are red team centric. Or if you're trying to make a move into management or leadership, that's when you might want to start thinking about getting the CISP, the CISSP. Or if you want to do like architecture, like really high level architecture, they have the CISP architecture centric test. But to be honest, like if you already have your foot in the door, you have a year, 2 years in, I don't think that you need to be chasing certificates at night, because that experience is already speaking for itself. So
yeah, 100% agree. You know, it all comes down to time management and that cost benefit. Like, do you want to spend your evenings instead of with your friends and family? Do you want to spend it studying? Maybe if you don't have the career experience, then maybe you do need to put in a little bit of time. I think we've all been there where we're trying to figure out how we get to the next step in our career, and maybe that's what we do. But it comes down to time management, setting goals, sticking to them, and putting in the work, right?
Like I have 2 little kids. I have 2 under 2. And so I'm not going to be spending my afternoons studying for a certification. I'll be waiting until I figure out more about where I want my career to go when they're a little bit older, to really focus in on my next certification. So I have my 2, but I'm not spending my afternoons up in my office when I could be spending it downstairs, enjoying my time with my family.
100% agree. And I know you're probably not, maybe you're in the same situation, but you're talking about in the beginning of your career when you were working help desk and you would get the opportunity to help out with some sysadmin tasks. I would say even for people in the mid-level of their career, do that as well. Because if you're doing security at a large organization, let's say you're working in the SOC, right? You're a tier 2 or tier 3 analyst, right? They probably have a pen testing team, or they probably have a compliance or a governance team. Like, go talk to those people, make friends with them, see if you can piggyback on them, you know, every once in a while to get that experience. And sure, it may not be overnight, but maybe after a year of doing something like that, maybe they'll let you join their team, or you'll get the opportunity to join their team, right? It's about opening those doors. And I don't want to say you have to continuously grind, but you have to be smart about how you use your time.
And it comes back to having that foundational knowledge. So if you're doing level 1 help desk and you're picking up admin tasks on the side, it might not feel like you're in security, but you're building that foundational knowledge that's going to help you years down the road. Like, especially if you're writing like security standards and doing things like that, you need to have that foundational knowledge, that background on what a good standard looks like.
100%. And it's pretty cool because kind of going on with what you're saying, like, look, the security standards, right? I won't dig too deep on that, but I'll say add the security flair to what you're doing, or think about it from a security point of view. Like, oh, sure, I'm just pushing patches to remote systems, you know, big deal. Well, you're actually making the network more secure because the vulnerability assessment that the other team did said these need to be secured. So yeah, putting that security spin on it is always a good idea.
Like it might seem very simple, but that's actually a function of security, making sure that all your endpoints, regardless if they're user endpoints or web applications, are up to date. Like, that's a massive part of what security is.
Yeah, and as someone who works on the offensive side, I will find those things and take advantage of them if they aren't patched. So you know, set a standard time that you need to patch critical vulnerabilities. That's a video for another time, I think. Cool. So we've covered a lot of interesting things, and you've had a lot of great insights. But I do want to throw this question at you and see what you say. So if you were interviewing someone for a DevSecOps role, what is something you would ask, or several questions you would ask to kind of gauge that candidate?
Yeah. So again, going back to the beginning, we talked about how everyone believes DevSecOps is different. You know, so let me shoot you the question, and I'll say DevSecOps is different for everybody. You know, in my opinion, it's about reducing the barrier between the DevOps deployments, integrating security into the CI/CD pipelines, creating fast feedback loops for developers. That's what I think DevOps is, or DevSecOps is. what do you think it is? And can you tell me maybe some background around why you have this opinion?
That's interesting. Yeah. Turning it around on them. So okay, so I'm not a DevSecOps person, obviously,
No, you
but
see, you're not a DevSecOps person, but DevSecOps is literally different for everybody. So
exactly. Okay, yeah.
it's not a right or wrong answer, but you should be able to intelligently like have some form of idea of what it is, and then we can have an actual conversation around why are you thinking the way you are? Because you're probably right. You know, who am I to tell you you're wrong? But let's talk about it. And let's really get into your, it's going to, based on your answer, you're going to tell me what your background is and like previous experiences with previous roles. Because it's all about perspective. Everybody has a different perspective. And that's what really brings value to a team is the last thing that I want to do is work with a bunch of people that have my background because we're all going to look at the same problem the exact same way. I'd rather work with 20 people of 20 different backgrounds and look at a single problem and then come to a mutual conclusion or a mutual answer from there.
Man, perfect answers. Great answers. Because it's like it's the same on the other areas of security, right? It's that methodology piece, figuring out how someone thinks and what they can bring to a team. Example, just like you gave, I'm strong in malware development, but I may not be strong in Active Directory stuff, right? So even though I was an Active Directory admin, like I may not be the best like Kerberoser out there, but my teammate is, right? So we kind of, we work together in tandem, bringing those skills to the table. So it sounds like it's the same, right, for a DevSecOps team.
Yeah, like I'm really big into secrets management, but I'm not necessarily great at Kubernetes. But I know a lot of DevSecOps people that know policies and know methodologies around building guidelines and guardrails around Kubernetes clusters and what can an entity do in a specific namespace versus another namespace. And they write standards and policies, and they actually write infrastructure as code around those things. I'm not necessarily an expert around that, but again, I don't really need to be. I need to be able to have that conversation intelligently with the person on my team that might be better at that stuff. And then we can come to a grand conclusion at the end of the project saying, okay, this is what our goal was. This is what we came up with. Now, does the rest of the team agree? Now let's go implement that.
Teamwork, man. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. So yeah, that is all the questions I have. Real quick, Dillon, do you want to give any shout outs like, hey, follow me on Twitter or check out this presentation I'm doing or this new GitHub post I'm making or this new repo I'm publishing? Yeah, any shout outs you want to do?
I mean, I'm always up for more followers on Twitter. I really try to, I'm not doing a lot of technical stuff on there. I'm just following a lot of security focus. Like Alyssa Miller is probably one of my favorite people on there. You guys can follow me. Voidwalker 0x79 is the handle. And likewise for my GitHub profile, I have a few things on there around Terraform Minikube automated deployments of HashiCorp Vault. So if you guys want to go and get your hands dirty with Vault and secrets management, you can go pull that down and you can have a locally running instance of Vault and start digging your fingers into some secrets management. And yeah, there you go.
That's pretty cool. I might have to actually check that out. So yeah, I will put Dillon's information in the description below, and I'll put his Twitter handle here on the screen as well for you guys to check it out. So please go follow Dillon, learn some terraforming from him. Because I mean, honestly, I could use some of those skills too. So I might have to check it out as well. Once again, Dillon, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm going to say it again, like reading your posts or your comments on the videos has been so inspirational for me. And I'm sure, last time I looked, there was like almost 500 likes on one of them. Like,
Yeah, I mean,
people hearing your story is just so amazing. And I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that are aiming to have that kind of story.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to let people know, like, if there's any like high school kids or anybody that's really like feeling doubtful that, life is really, really long and it's a long process. And things come when they're supposed to I barely passed high school. So I never really had big hopes for myself, but now, like I got a family, I have an amazing career, and all I can do is be grateful. And if I can do it, literally anybody can. They just need to put a little bit of extra work in the after hours. So yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, of course, man. I really appreciate having you on here, and I'm sure everyone else will be just as inspired as I was.